at dawn, as the first light crept over Oakwood Heights. Olivia Harper's gleaming $90,000 Cadillac Escalade blocked the driveway of James Carter, a black CEO who'd clawed his way to the top. That SUV wasn't just a car, it was Olivia's badge of power. The HOA president who ruled this upscale Atlanta suburb like a dictator. But she'd picked the wrong fight. James, a man who'd built a tech empire from nothing, wasn't one to back down. That morning, Olivia's Cadillac stopped an ambulance from reaching James's mother, Grace, a cancer patient needing urgent care. Through her kitchen window, Olivia sipped her latte, smirking at the Carter family's panic. That smirk lit the fuse. Her prized car was about to vanish forever, and her empire of control would crumble in front of hundreds. Ever faced a tyrant who made your life hell? Drop your story in the comments, we want to hear it. Where are you watching from, Atlanta, Chicago, or somewhere else? Because this tale reveals the 3 legal tricks James used to crush Olivia, all within the law, and the taste of justice is sweeter than you'd ever imagine. James Carter, 47, was a tech CEO who'd just moved to Oakwood Heights with his pregnant wife, Emily, and his mother, Grace. Oakwood, a ritzy neighborhood on Atlanta's outskirts, was known for million-dollar homes and suffocating rules. James was no stranger to challenges. He'd built his company from scratch, smashing through prejudice to become one of Georgia's most prominent black CEOs. But he never expected his biggest battle to come from across the street, Olivia Harper. The HOA president who ran Oakwood like her personal kingdom, her Cadillac, with its Queen HOA license plate, screamed arrogance. Olivia targeted James from day one, not just for his success, but for his skin color. This neighborhood doesn't need people like you dragging down property values. She'd hinted at a meeting before slapping him with a $600 fine for improperly parked work vehicles, a truck used to haul medical equipment for his mother. The war ignited when James installed a temporary wheelchair ramp for Grace to navigate their home. 3 days later, Olivia stormed over in designer heels and a crimson dress, clutching her iPad like a weapon. "That ramp violates architectural standards," she declared, her voice ice-cold. "The board will review it in 8 weeks. I'm sure your mother will manage until then." Her smile cut like a blade, and James's blood boiled. That night, Grace tried the stairs without the ramp and nearly fell. James stayed up all night reinforcing it, power tools screaming defiance through the quiet suburb. By morning, a $700 fine was taped to his door, printed on paper reeking of Olivia's expensive perfume. But James didn't yet know Olivia wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was a machine of control, using HOA rules to manipulate home prices and drive out anyone who didn't fit her vision of Oakwood. Olivia, a real estate broker, turned the HOA into a tool to strong-arm families like James into selling cheap. So her husband, David Harper, who owned Harper Realty, could flip their homes for profit. She didn't stop at fines. She launched a calculated campaign of harassment. One morning, her Cadillac blocked James's driveway just as an ambulance arrived for Grace's chemo. James called the cops, but Olivia appeared with Oscar-worthy timing, feigning surprise. "Oh, I had no idea you needed to leave. I was just visiting a neighbor," but James knew she had their schedule down pat. The next day, she blocked a delivery of medical equipment, costing James $800 in restocking fees. By Wednesday, Emily, 8 months pregnant, was trapped behind Olivia's Cadillac on her way to a doctor's appointment. The stress triggered pains so severe she was rushed to the hospital, fearing preterm labor all because of Olivia. James started to suspect Olivia had inside information. Checking his mailbox, he found tampered tape marks. A chilling thought hit she was stealing their mail. Mail theft was a federal crime, and James saw it as his first weapon to take her down. He set a trap, hiding a camera in a garden light, catching Olivia in her $400 yoga outfit snapping photos of their mail at 6 a.m. The footage was crystal clear. But James needed more to ensure she couldn't wiggle free. He began crafting a meticulous plan, not just to protect his family, but to topple Olivia's entire empire. James found an ally in Ruth Thompson, an 80-year-old firecracker who'd been best friends with his grandmother. Ruth played the sweet old lady, bringing Olivia cookies to pry out secrets. "She thinks I'm harmless," Ruth whispered, handing James a folder of old documents from his grandmother's time. The house, it turned out, was registered as mixed use since 1975, exempting it from new HOA rules. Olivia had no idea her own regulations were about to be turned against her. The Patel family, Indian neighbors, shared how Olivia fined them for hanging Diwali lights, calling them gang symbols. Henry, a black veteran, recounted Olivia calling the cops on him for suspicious behavior checking his own mailbox. The deeper James dug, the clearer it became. Olivia wasn't just abusing power. She was systematically targeting families of color, anyone who didn't fit her pristine Oakwood fantasy. James turned his garage into a war room, rallying Ruth, the Patels, Henry, and other residents Olivia had tormented. They analyzed documents, set up cameras, and planned to strike at the annual HOA gala where Olivia played queen to woo real estate clients. James uncovered a killer rule: any vehicle parked illegally on common property, with expired registration or no insurance, could be towed immediately. And the best part, Olivia's driveway, where she parked her Cadillac, was actually HOA land due to a 2002 survey error. James called Jamal, his high school buddy who now ran a towing company. "You want to tow that Cadillac?" James asked. Jamal laughed. "She called my trucks visual garbage at a city council meeting. This is fate, brother." They planned to tow Olivia's car at the gala in front of 300 residents and news crews. But James aimed higher. He wanted to expose Olivia's every crime: embezzlement, mail theft, racial discrimination, and power abuse. The gala would be her final stage, and James was ready to pull the curtain. As the gala loomed closer, Olivia Harper's attacks grew nastier, like a cornered animal baring its teeth. James Carter, however, was no prey. His garage war room buzzed with energy laptops humming, whiteboards scrawled with timelines, and coffee cups piling up like evidence of their sleepless nights. Ruth Thompson, the 80-year-old mastermind disguised as a cookie-baking grandma, slipped James a bombshell during one of her intel drops at the grocery store. "Olivia's been skimming HOA funds," she whispered over a stack of avocados. "My nephew at the title company found $200,000 in shady transfers. She's drowning in debt but living like a queen." James's eyes lit up. This wasn't just about towing a car anymore. Olivia was a criminal, and he was building a case to bury her. The evidence was staggering. Ruth's nephew pulled records showing Olivia hadn't paid HOA dues in 7 years, claiming a presidential exemption while fining others for being a day late. The Patel family dug deeper, revealing Olivia used HOA credit cards for personal splurges, Vegas trips, designer bags, even a $12,000 wine collection labeled as community event expenses. Meanwhile, Henry, the black veteran, uncovered a pattern: Olivia targeted minority families with fines, like the Chens, who were hit with $1,000 for unapproved backyard lanterns during Lunar New Year. She called them a fire hazard, Henry growled, but her Christmas lights stayed up till March. The room seethed with shared outrage. Olivia wasn't just a bully, she was a bigot with a bank account, and James's team was closing in. James's plan hinged on the gala, 3 days away, where Olivia would strut like royalty. He and Jamal fine-tuned the towing operation, ensuring every move was legal. Jamal's tow truck, polished to a mirror shine, was ready to roll, with cameras rigged to capture every angle. "When we hook that Cadillac," Jamal said, grinning, "it's going to be a show for the ages." But James wanted more than a spectacle. He wanted Olivia's crimes exposed on a stage she'd built herself. Dr. Patel, a forensic accountant by day, volunteered to present the financial evidence at the gala. "I've got spreadsheets that'll make her sweat," he said, projecting a chart of Olivia's embezzlement. The numbers didn't lie. $200,000 siphoned over 7 years, with receipts tying her to every cent. But Olivia wasn't sitting idle. She sensed the noose tightening and struck back with venom. On Monday, James woke to find his company's website hacked, replaced with a smear campaign accusing him of tax evasion and unsafe business practices. The anonymous site, traced to the HOA's server, featured doctored photos of James's construction sites, claiming shoddy work. By noon, 2 clients canceled contracts worth $150,000, citing concerns from the blog. James's jaw clenched as he realized Olivia was trying to bankrupt him before the gala. "She's playing dirty," Emily said, her voice trembling from bed rest. "She knows we're coming for her." The next blow was personal. Tuesday morning, a child protective services worker showed up at Emily's school, pulling her from class in front of her students. The anonymous report claimed Emily was endangering her unborn child by driving recklessly. The accusation was absurd. Emily hadn't driven over 25 miles in years, but the stress sent her blood pressure soaring, landing her back in the hospital. James raced to her side, fury mixing with fear as doctors warned of preterm labor. "She's targeting our baby," Emily whispered, clutching his hand. That night, James found a note slipped under his door. "Back off, or it gets worse." The handwriting matched Olivia's HOA violation notices, and James's resolve hardened. This wasn't just war, it was survival. James called in reinforcements. Mike, the neighborhood mail carrier, confirmed Olivia's mail theft wasn't a one-off. "She's been rifling through mailboxes for years," he said, handing over photos of tampered locks. "I reported her to the postal inspector last month. They're itching for a case like this." James's hidden camera had already caught Olivia stealing a fake medical appointment letter he'd planted, and now Mike's evidence sealed her fate. Mail theft carried a 5-year federal sentence, and James was building an airtight case. He also reached out to Lisa Chen, a lawyer who'd been fined by Olivia for her unapproved koi pond. "I'll draft the legal motions," Lisa said, her eyes blazing. "She's violated civil rights laws by targeting minorities. We can sue her into oblivion." The war room grew into a movement. The Oakwood Freedom Alliance now included 20 households, each with their own Olivia horror story. The Kims, a Korean family, shared how Olivia reported their family dinners as unauthorized gatherings, claiming their kimchi smelled offensive. The Garcias, a Latino couple, were fined $2,000 for a backyard quinceañera, which Olivia called disruptive. Every story fueled the fire. James organized them like a general, assigning roles. The Patels handled financial data. The Kims set up a secure server for evidence, and Ruth kept feeding Olivia false leads. "I told her I saw you meeting with a lawyer." Ruth chuckled. "She's paranoid now, checking her rearview mirror like a fugitive." 2 days before the gala, Olivia upped the ante. James's mother, Grace, received a visit from Adult Protective Services, triggered by an anonymous tip about neglect in unsafe conditions. The social worker, a weary woman named Carla, inspected their home while Olivia watched from across the street, pretending to water her already wilted roses. Grace, frail but fierce, shut it down. "My son takes better care of me than anyone," she said, her voice steady despite her illness. Carla apologized, sensing a setup, and slipped James her card. "I've seen this before," she said, "serial false reporters targeting vulnerable people. Call me when you take her down." James nodded, adding witness intimidation to Olivia's rap sheet. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source, David Harper, Olivia's husband. He showed up at James's door late Wednesday, looking like a man who'd aged a decade in a week. "I can't keep covering for her," he said, handing James a USB drive. "She's bankrupted us. This has her emails, bank records, even her plans to frame you with CPS. The drive was a goldmine proof of Olivia's $200,000 embezzlement, including transfers to her personal account for gambling debts. Most damning was an email where she bragged about cleaning up Oakwood by targeting undesirables code for minority families." James stared at the screen, heart pounding. This wasn't just a smoking gun. It was a cannon. With the gala 48 hours away, Olivia made a desperate move. She called an emergency HOA meeting, trying to pass rules banning recording devices, group gatherings, and towing without board approval. She stood at the podium, makeup smudged, voice shrill. "These measures protect our community from harassment," she insisted. But Dr. Patel stood up, calm as steel. "Point of order, Madam President. Bylaws require 30-day notice for votes. Page 47, Section 3. The room erupted as 40 residents packed the space, sensing rebellion. Olivia's motions failed 4-1, with even her loyal board members abandoning her. She fled the meeting, but not before James caught the fear in her eyes. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know what. That night, the Oakwood Freedom Alliance met in James's garage, their resolve unbreakable. The Kims synced camera footage to a cloud server dubbed Olivia's Downfall. Jamal tested the tow truck's hydraulics, ensuring a flawless hook. Lisa prepared legal motions to freeze Olivia's assets post-gala. And Grace, from her wheelchair, offered a battle plan straight out of her old activist days. "Hit her where it hurts," she said. "Her reputation, her money, her freedom." James looked around at his team neighbors, turned warriors, and felt a surge of pride. Olivia thought she was untouchable. In 48 hours, she'd learn what happens when a community fights back. The night before the gala, Oakwood Heights pulsed with tension, like a storm about to break. James Carter's garage was a hive of activity, the air thick with the scent of coffee and defiance. The Oakwood Freedom Alliance, now 25 households strong, finalized their plan to dismantle Olivia Harper's empire. James stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, mapping out every detail like a general before battle. "Tomorrow, we don't just tow her car," he said, his voice steady. "We expose her crimes: embezzlement, mail theft, discrimination right where she feels untouchable." The room nodded in unison, their faces lit with a shared fire. Olivia's reign was hours from collapsing, and they'd make sure the world saw it fall. Dr. Patel had polished his presentation, a digital guillotine of spreadsheets and receipts ready to drop at the gala. "Her $200,000 theft is documented to the penny," he said, clicking through slides that showed Olivia's HOA card charges for luxury spa days and private jet rentals. The Kims had synced their cloud server, now overflowing with footage of Olivia's illegal parking and mail theft. Ruth Thompson, ever the spy, reported Olivia's latest move. She'd hired a private investigator to dig into James's business, but the PI, a friend of Jamal's, tipped them off instead. "She's desperate," Ruth said, her eyes twinkling. "Told me she's doubling security for the gala. Thinks you're planning something?" James grinned. "Oh, we are." But Olivia wasn't done fighting dirty. At 6 a.m., James found his company's main supplier had canceled a $100,000 contract, citing an anonymous email with evidence of fraud. The email, traced back to Olivia's personal account, was sloppy, sent from her HOA office IP. "She's not even trying to hide it anymore," Emily said from her hospital bed, where she was still under observation for stress-induced contractions. Then came the cruelest blow, yet a blog post on the HOA server, accusing Grace of being a drug addict, complete with a photoshopped image of her surrounded by pill bottles. The post included private medical details only someone with access to her stolen mail could know. James's hands shook as he read it, not from fear, but from a cold, diamond-hard rage. Olivia had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. James called Carla, the adult protective services worker, who confirmed the pattern. "This is classic serial harassment," she said. "I've flagged her false report for investigation. The DA's office is watching." Next, he contacted Mike, the mail carrier, who'd escalated Olivia's mail theft to the federal postal inspector. "They're ready to move," Mike said. "Her stealing that fake medical letter you planted, that's a slam-dunk felony." James added these to the growing arsenal federal charges, civil rights violations, and now cyber defamation. Olivia's empire was a house of cards, and he was about to blow it down. The Alliance's network expanded. The Garcias shared how Olivia had reported their teenage daughter to immigration authorities, claiming she looked undocumented despite being born in Atlanta. The Chens revealed Olivia's emails to the board, calling their koi pond an Asian eyesore. Each story painted Olivia as a predator, targeting anyone who didn't fit her vision of a pure Oakwood. James's lawyer, Lisa Chen, crafted a legal trap, a class-action lawsuit for discrimination and harassment, backed by 25 families. Her targeting of minorities violates federal housing laws. Lisa said, "We can bankrupt her and her husband's company." As the gala approached, Olivia tried one last power play. She sent an HOA-wide email, announcing new fines for disruptive behavior at the gala, clearly aimed at James's alliance. But she'd underestimated their resolve. Henry, the black veteran, rallied 5 other veterans from the local VA center, all victims of Olivia's harassment. "She called my Purple Heart display a militant decoration," Henry said, his voice thick with anger. "Tomorrow, we show her what real strength looks like." The veterans formed a phone tree, ensuring 50 witnesses would be ready to record Olivia's downfall at the gala. Jamal, meanwhile, was a machine of precision. He parked his tow truck a block away, running drills with his driver, Carlos, an ex-Marine who treated the mission like a military op. "We'll hook that Cadillac in under 60 seconds, Carlos said. "Testing the wheel lift, every move will be on video, legal as a judge's gavel." James's garage became a tech hub, with the Kims rigging a live feed to stream the towing to a private server, ensuring no evidence could be lost. Ruth slipped James a final piece of intel Olivia planned to arrive at 7:45 p.m., parking in the fire lane for maximum attention. "She's begging for a spectacle," Ruth said. "Let's give her one." The morning of the gala, Olivia launched her final assault. James woke to a swarm of reporters outside his house, tipped off by an anonymous call about elder abuse at his address. The call traced back to Olivia's cell phone. Another sloppy mistake. Grace, in her wheelchair, faced the cameras with unshakable dignity. "The only abuse here is from a woman who targets the vulnerable," she said, her voice carrying the weight of a lifetime fighting injustice. The reporters, sensing a bigger story, started asking about Olivia. James stayed silent, saving his ammunition for the gala, but inside, he was a furnace of resolve. Olivia had attacked his family, his business, his community. Tonight, she'd face the consequences. By afternoon, the Alliance was ready. Dr. Patel's presentation was loaded onto a USB, backed up on 3 devices. Lisa's legal motions were filed, including a demand for an emergency HOA audit. The Kim server was live, syncing footage from 10 hidden cameras around the gala venue. Jamal's tow truck was fueled, its dashboard cams rolling. Grace, despite her illness, insisted on attending. "I fought bigger bullies than Olivia in the 60s, she said, pinning a rose to her dress, a nod to her activist past. Emily, still on bed rest, sent James a text, "Make her pay for what she did to us." James tucked the phone away, his heart heavy, but his purpose clear. As the sun set, Oakwood Heights glowed with anticipation. The gala venue, draped in fairy lights, was Olivia's stage, where she expected to reign supreme. But James and his alliance were ready to turn it into her execution chamber. They had evidence of her crimes, a tow truck on standby, and a community united against her tyranny. Olivia thought she was walking into her coronation. Instead, she was stepping into a trap, one forged by the very rules she'd twisted to torment others. In just a few hours, her Cadillac would be gone, her crimes exposed, and her empire reduced to rubble. As the gala kicked off at 7:00 p.m., the Oakwood Heights Community Center sparkled with fairy lights and false promises of unity. Olivia Harper, in a glittering $6,000 gown, swept through the crowd like a queen, air-kissing real estate clients and basking in her own myth. Outside, James Carter stood with his mother, Grace, both dressed sharply, their calm masking the storm about to break. The Oakwood Freedom Alliance was in position, Dr. Patel at the projector, the Kims monitoring the live feed. Ruth Thompson weaving through the crowd with a smile that hid her rebel heart. 3 news crews, lured by a tip about community drama, mingled among the 300 guests, their cameras ready for a story they didn't yet understand. Olivia thought she was untouchable. In minutes, she'd learn how wrong she was. At 7:43 p.m., Olivia's Cadillac rolled up, parking brazenly in the fire lane for maximum visibility. She spent 3 minutes primping in her mirror, oblivious to the 50 phones already recording her every move. Her Queen HOA license plate gleamed under the gala lights, the expired registration sticker a glaring violation. James nodded to Jamal, stationed a block away, who texted back showtime in 5. Carlos, the ex-Marine driver, maneuvered the tow truck into position, its red and blue lights ready to paint the night. Inside, Olivia worked the room, her perfume a mix of Chanel and arrogance trailing her like a toxic cloud. She had no idea the trap was closing. At 8:00 p.m., Dr. Patel took the microphone, his voice steady as he announced a special presentation. Olivia, seated in the front row, preened, expecting praise. Instead, the screen lit up with a spreadsheet that made the crowd gasp. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Patel said, "this is 8 years of systematic embezzlement, $200,000 stolen from our HOA funds. Slides flipped through Olivia's charges private jet rentals as board travel, a $12,000 wine collection as event refreshments, even her mortgage payments labeled community maintenance." The room buzzed with shock, then fury, as whispers turned to shouts. Olivia leapt up, her gown sparkling with desperation. "This is illegal," she shrieked. "You can't access those records without my approval." Lisa Chen stood, her lawyer's calm cutting through the chaos. "Actually, we can..." Page 73 of the bylaws you wrote allows any 5 members to demand a financial audit if fraud is suspected. We have 25 signatures. The news cameras swiveled, capturing Olivia's face as it cycled from smug to panicked. Her board members, once loyal, shifted uncomfortably, their silence deafening. Then Ruth's text hit the group chat. Now, through the windows, Jamal's tow truck roared to life, its lights flashing like a warning siren. The crowd surged to the glass, phones raised, as Carlos hooked Olivia's Cadillac with surgical precision. Olivia shoved through the guests, her heels clicking frantically. "That's my car," she screamed, bursting outside. "You can't do this. I'm the president, Carlos, unfazed, cited the law, ma'am. This vehicle is illegally parked on HOA common property with expired registration. Per Section 47C and state statute, we're authorized to impound." The news crews followed, their lenses drinking in the drama. Olivia grabbed Carlos's arm assault, caught on camera. She kicked the tow truck property damage, recorded in 4K. Then came the fatal blow. "You filthy immigrants don't know who you're messing with." She spat, her voice dripping venom. The racial slur hung in the air, heard by 300 people, captured by 3 news crews. The black reporter from Channel 5 turned to her cameraman. "Tell me you got that." He nodded, zooming in on Olivia's unraveling. Inside, Dr. Patel kept the presentation rolling, revealing emails where Olivia bragged about cleaning up Oakwood by targeting undesirables families like the Patels, Kims, and Garcias. The crowd's anger boiled over as the screen showed her stolen mail, including James's planted medical letter. "This is a federal crime," Dr. Patel said, holding up a photo of Olivia rifling through mailboxes. 5 years in prison per count. Olivia, now outside, froze as the crowd chanted, "Thief, thief!" Her empire was crumbling, and she was center stage for its collapse. Then came the twist that sealed her fate. As Carlos secured the Cadillac, a black sedan with official plates pulled up. 2 men stepped out, a sheriff's deputy and a federal postal inspector, credentials flashing. "Olivia Harper," the deputy called. "You're under arrest for mail theft, wire fraud, and filing false reports with Child Protective Services." The crowd gasped, a collective release of years of pent-up rage. Olivia tried to run, her gown catching on her heels, and she face-planted into a rose bush she'd once fined the Garcias for pruning. The deputy cuffed her as she screamed, mascara streaking like black tears. "James Carter, you did this!" she wailed, her voice cracking. James stepped forward, Grace at his side in her wheelchair. "No." "Olivia," he said, his voice calm but iron firm. "You built this trap. We just sprung it." The news crews scrambled, filming Olivia's walk of shame to the patrol car. Phones live-streamed her Miranda rights to thousands online. Then, David Harper, her husband, emerged from the crowd, a process server at his side. "Olivia, you're served," he said, sliding divorce papers through the car window. "The prenup voids your claim to the house if convicted of a felony. You're done." The look on her face, captured from 20 angles, was pure devastation, a portrait of karma in real time. As the Cadillac vanished on Jamal's flatbed, Olivia disappeared into the patrol car, 2 symbols of her power erased in one night. The community center erupted in applause, a roar of relief and victory. The news crews pivoted to James, microphones thrusting forward. "How did you do it?" a reporter asked. James, with Grace's hand on his shoulder, kept it simple. "We used her own rules against her. She thought she was above the law. She wasn't. The Alliance's evidence spreadsheets, videos, emails flooded social media, trending nationwide within hours. The hashtag #OakwoodJustice hit 1 million views before midnight, with memes of Olivia's meltdown spreading like wildfire. The revolution wasn't just local, it was viral, a warning to every petty tyrant in America. The Oakwood Heights Community Center vibrated with the aftershocks of Olivia Harper's arrest, the air electric with a mix of disbelief and triumph. James Carter stood at the center of it all, his mother Grace by his side, her wheelchair a quiet symbol of their fight. The crowd of 300 residents, still buzzing from the sight of Olivia's handcuffed exit, turned their attention to the stage where Dr. Patel continued his presentation. The screen flashed with damning evidence bank statements showing Olivia's $200,000 theft from HOA funds, emails plotting to drive out minority families, and footage of her stealing mail. Each slide was a nail in the coffin of her reign. As the news crews filmed, the hashtag #OakwoodJustice climbed to 1.5 million views, with clips of Olivia's meltdown shared across the country. But James knew the battle wasn't over. Olivia's empire was down, but its rubble could still cause damage. Inside the center, the alliance seized the moment. Lisa Chen, the lawyer, stepped to the microphone, holding up a stack of legal motions. Tonight, we're filing a class-action lawsuit against Olivia Harper for discrimination, harassment, and financial fraud, she announced. 25 families representing $500, $1,000 in damages. Stand united. The crowd roared, their applause shaking the chandeliers. The Patels, Kims, Garcias, and Henry, the black veteran, stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces a mix of pain and resolve. Lisa detailed Olivia's targeting of minorities, fining the Kims for offensive cooking smells, reporting the Garcias' daughter to ICE, calling Henry's war medals a threatening display. Each story fueled the crowd's fury, turning neighbors into a united front. Outside, the news crews interviewed witnesses, capturing the raw emotion of a community freed from tyranny. Ruth Thompson, ever the sly strategist, worked the reporters, slipping them copies of the Alliance's evidence packet. Olivia thought she could bully us into silence. She told a Channel 5 reporter, her sweet grandma voice laced with steel. She didn't count on us fighting back with proof. The footage of Olivia's racial slur-screaming filthy immigrants at Carlos went viral, sparking outrage online. By 10 p.m., real estate firms across Atlanta dropped Olivia as a broker, her career evaporating faster than her Cadillac on Jamal's flatbed. But the Alliance uncovered one last bombshell. Dr. Patel, digging through Olivia's financial trail, found a hidden account tied to Harper Realty, her husband David's company. She funneled HOA money to prop up his failing business. He revealed, projecting a ledger showing $150,000 in consulting fees paid to a shell company Olivia controlled. David, already reeling from serving divorce papers, was now implicated in her crimes. James's phone lit up with a text from David. I didn't know the full extent. I'm turning over everything to the DA. The USB drive David had given James contained not just Olivia's emails, but recordings of her planning to cleanse Oakwood of undesirables. One audio clip, played for the crowd, captured her slurring over wine blacks, Asians, Latinos. They don't belong in our vision of Oakwood. Gasps filled the room, followed by a silence heavy with betrayal. The Alliance called an emergency HOA election on the spot, the community center transforming into a battlefield for democracy. Ruth Thompson, nominated by acclamation, took the stage. No more secrets, no more fines, no more fear, she declared. We rebuild Oakwood together. The vote was unanimous. Ruth became president, and her first act was to suspend all fines issued under Olivia's rule, erasing $500 to $1,000 in predatory penalties. Residents wept openly, hugging neighbors they'd once feared crossing. The Kims announced plans for a cultural festival. The Patels offered to host a Diwali celebration, and Henry proposed a veteran support group in the community center. Oakwood was no longer Olivia's kingdom, it was a community reborn. By midnight, the postal inspector's office confirmed Olivia faced 32 federal counts, from mail theft to wire fraud, with a potential 7-year sentence. The DA added state charges for false reporting and witness intimidation, tying her to the CPS and APS complaints against James's family. Her plea deal was already in motion, no trial, but a guaranteed 2 years in federal prison, $350,000 in restitution, and a lifetime ban from any HOA or nonprofit role. Her real estate license was revoked, and Harper Realty, crippled by the scandal, filed for bankruptcy the next morning. David, now cooperating with prosecutors, sold their McMansion to cover legal fees, leaving Olivia with nothing but a mall kiosk job selling knockoff sunglasses. James's business, meanwhile, soared. Clients flooded in, drawn by his reputation as the CEO who toppled a tyrant. You're the guy who took down that HOA queen, right? One client asked, signing a $200,000 contract. James nodded, but his mind was on his family. Emily, finally stable, was due to give birth any day. Grace, frail but fierce, started mentoring the veterans group, sharing stories of her civil rights battles. The Alliance's work didn't stop with Olivia's arrest. They launched a website, Oakwood Truth, posting every document and video to ensure transparency. Other neighborhoods took notice, with 3 nearby HOAs launching their own audits, inspired by James's fight. As the gala wound down, James stood outside with Jamal, watching the community center glow with new hope. "Best toe of my career," Jamal said, clinking a beer bottle against James's. "Think she's learned her lesson?" James shook his head. "People like Olivia don't learn, but they do fall." He glanced at Grace, laughing with Ruth under the fairy lights. Oakwood Heights wasn't just free, it was alive, a testament to what happens when good people fight back with truth and unity. The dawn after the gala broke over Oakwood Heights with a quiet that felt like victory. James Carter stood on his porch, coffee in hand, watching the neighborhood wake up free from Olivia Harper's shadow. The community center, still littered with gala decorations, was now a symbol of rebirth. The Oakwood Freedom Alliance, forged in the heat of their fight, didn't disband, it grew stronger, determined to ensure no tyrant like Olivia could rise again. But James knew the war wasn't just about one woman. It was about dismantling a system that let people like her thrive, and the Alliance was ready to rewrite the rules of Oakwood forever. By morning, the viral storm of Oakwood justice had hit 3 million views, with news outlets from Atlanta to New York picking up the story. Clips of Olivia's arrest, her sequined gown snagged in a rosebush, her racial slur echoing in 4K played on repeat across social media. The hashtag became a rallying cry for HOA victims nationwide, with comments flooding in from people sharing their own stories of petty tyrants and rigged rules. James's inbox overflowed with messages from strangers, some thanking him, others asking for advice on fighting their own battles. "You're a hero." One wrote from Texas, "Our HOA president makes Olivia look like an amateur." James didn't feel like a hero, just a man protecting his family. But he knew the fight had sparked something bigger. Ruth Thompson, now HOA president, wasted no time. At 9 a.m., she called a public meeting, live-streamed on the new Oakwood Truth website. "Transparency is our foundation," she declared, her 80-year-old voice carrying the weight of decades of wisdom. She proposed new bylaws. Every fine required a resident vote. All financial records would be posted online monthly, and the president's term was capped at 2 years. The crowd of 200 cheered, their trust in the HOA reborn. Ruth also announced the Rosa Carter Scholarship, funded by recovered HOA funds to support students fighting housing discrimination. Named after James's grandmother, it was a nod to her legacy of battling injustice. "Rosa would have loved this," Grace said, her eyes shining as she wheeled into the meeting, a rose pinned to her jacket. The Alliance's evidence kept fueling the fire. Dr. Patel and the Kims uploaded Olivia's financial records to the website, exposing every dollar she'd stolen. The Patels organized a Diwali festival, inviting the whole neighborhood to celebrate what Olivia had once fined as gang symbols. The Kims planned a Korean cultural night, reclaiming their heritage after Olivia's offensive smell complaints. Henry, the Black veteran, launched a weekly veterans group in the community center, a space Olivia had once locked for unauthorized gatherings. Each event was a middle finger to her legacy, a reclaiming of Oakwood's soul. But Olivia's fallout wasn't done. The federal postal inspector's investigation widened, tracing her mail theft to 2 other states where she'd left a trail of broken neighborhoods. Prosecutors added 15 more counts, pushing her potential sentence to a decade. Her plea deal crumbled under the weight of new evidence, including David Harper's recordings of her plotting to frame neighbors with false CPS reports. David, now fully cooperating with the DA, revealed Olivia had blackmailed him into silence, threatening to expose his own financial missteps. She controlled everything. He told James over coffee, his face haggard, "I thought I was saving my business. I was just her puppet." Harper Realty's bankruptcy left David scrambling to sell assets, including the McMansion Olivia once flaunted. The irony, James's company was hired to renovate it for the new owners, a black family moving in from Chicago. James's business boomed. Clients called from across Georgia, drawn by his reputation as the CEO who took down a corrupt HOA. "You're the guy who towed that tyrant's car," right? A contractor asked, signing a $300,000 deal. James's calendar was booked for 2 years, his tech firm landing contracts he'd never dreamed of. But the real reward was at home. Emily, now off bed rest, was days from giving birth. Grace, though weakened by cancer, found new purpose mentoring the veterans group. Her stories of 1960s protests inspiring a new generation. "We fought for freedom then," she told them. "You're fighting for it now." The Alliance's work rippled beyond Oakwood. 2 nearby HOAs, inspired by the viral story, launched audits and ousted their own corrupt presidents. A state senator, who lived 3 blocks from James, drafted Oakwood's law, mandating HOA transparency and limiting board power. James testified at the state capitol, his voice steady as he shared Olivia's crimes. "She used rules to divide us." He told lawmakers, "We used truth to unite us." The bill passed 92-5, a victory for every neighborhood tired of petty dictators. Letters poured in from across the country. One from a law student in Florida whose mother had been targeted by an HOA. "Your story saved us," she wrote. "I'm studying housing law now, thanks to the Rosa Carter Scholarship." As spring bloomed, Oakwood threw its first Freedom Fest, a celebration of their new community. The community center, once Olivia's throne room, was packed with barbecue, music, and kids playing where her Cadillac used to block driveways. Ruth worked the crowd, her energy belying her 80 years. Henry manned the grill, swapping war stories with Grace. The Patels' Diwali lanterns lit up the night, and the Kim's kimchi station drew a line around the block. James stood with Emily, her hand resting on her belly, feeling their baby kick. "We did this," she whispered. "Not just for us, but for everyone." James nodded, his eyes on the crowd neighbors who'd once lived in fear, now laughing together. The festival featured a surprise guest, Carla, the APS worker who'd seen through Olivia's false reports. She gave a talk on spotting weaponized bureaucracy, empowering residents to fight back. "What happened here should be a blueprint," she said. "Ordinary people, armed with truth, can topple giants." As the sun set, James raised a glass to the crowd. "To Oakwood," he said, "to freedom, to truth, and to never letting a bully win again." The cheers echoed into the night, a promise that Olivia's shadow was gone for good. Months after the gala, Oakwood Heights had transformed into a beacon of hope, its streets alive with the hum of a community reborn. James Carter walked through the neighborhood, noticing kids playing freely where Olivia Harper's Cadillac once blocked driveways. The Oakwood Truth website, now a national model for HOA transparency, logged thousands of daily visitors, sharing bylaws and tips to fight corrupt boards. The Freedom Fest had become a monthly tradition, with neighbors like the Patels and Kims hosting cultural nights that turned Oakwood into a vibrant tapestry of diversity. But James knew the scars of Olivia's reign lingered, and the Oakwood Freedom Alliance stayed vigilant, ensuring her legacy of division would never take root again. The legal fallout for Olivia was relentless. Federal prosecutors, armed with the Alliance's evidence, upgraded her charges to 47 counts, including racketeering for running the HOA like a criminal enterprise. Her plea deal, once a lifeline, collapsed when David Harper turned over a hidden laptop containing her unfiltered emails. One message bragged about pushing out the blacks and Mexicans to keep Oakwood elite. Another outlined a plan to frame James's family for tax fraud using forged documents. The emails were a prosecutor's dream, each one a confession of hate and greed. Olivia's sentencing was set for fall, with a minimum of 5 years in federal prison and $400,000 in restitution. Her mall kiosk job, selling cheap phone cases, barely covered her legal fees, and her McMansion was auctioned off to a Latino family who turned it into a community art studio. James's life, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of triumph. His tech company landed a $2 million contract with a major Atlanta firm, drawn by his reputation as the CEO who toppled a tyrant. "You're the guy who took down that HOA queen." "Right," the client asked, shaking James's hand. "We need someone with your guts." His calendar was booked solid for 3 years, and he hired 5 new staff, including Henry, the black veteran, to oversee community outreach. At home, Emily gave birth to their daughter, Rosa, named after James's activist grandmother. Grace, despite her cancer, radiated joy holding her granddaughter, her strength a reminder of why they'd fought so hard. "This is what freedom looks like," she said, cradling Rosa under the glow of Diwali lanterns at a neighborhood event. The alliance's impact spread far beyond Oakwood. Oakwood's law, passed with overwhelming support, forced HOAs across Georgia to post financials online and limit board terms. James testified at a national housing conference, sharing their story to a packed room of activists and lawmakers. "Olivia used rules to break us," he said. "We used truth to build something better." His speech, live-streamed to millions, inspired 12 states to draft similar laws, with letters pouring in from families freed from their own HOA nightmares. One came from a single mom in Ohio, whose HOA had fined her $10,000 for a non-compliant mailbox. "Your story gave us the courage to fight back." She wrote, "We won, but a new twist emerged, one that shook even James's resolve. A week before Olivia's sentencing, Ruth Thompson called an urgent alliance meeting. "We've got a problem," she said, holding up a leaked court document. Olivia had hired a shady lawyer known for smearing victims to dodge convictions. The lawyer's plan accused James of fabricating evidence, claiming the alliance hacked Olivia's accounts to frame her. The document outlined a smear campaign, complete with fake witnesses ready to testify that James bribed David for the incriminating USB drive. "She's fighting from her cell," Ruth said, her voice grim. "She's not giving up." James felt a chill. But his team rallied. The Kims tech wizards traced the lawyer's fake witnesses to a shell company tied to Olivia's cousin, a low-rent real estate agent in Florida. Dr. Patel audited the lawyer's payments, finding $50,000 in consulting fees funneled from Olivia's frozen accounts, a clear violation of her bail terms. Lisa Chen filed an emergency motion to the DA, presenting the evidence. "This is witness tampering," she said. "Olivia's digging her own grave deeper." The postal inspector, still on the case, confirmed the lawyer's emails violated federal law, adding another charge to Olivia's tally. The alliance didn't just defend, they attacked. Henry organized a press conference, inviting every news outlet that had covered the gala. Standing with James, Grace, and 30 alliance members, he played Olivia's damning emails for the cameras. "This woman tried to destroy our community," he said, his purple heart pinned proudly to his chest. "Now she's trying to lie her way out of justice." The story exploded again, with Oakwood Justice trending globally at 5 million views. Olivia's lawyer dropped her within hours, unwilling to touch the radioactive case. Her sentencing judge, unimpressed by her tactics, hinted at a harsher penalty for lack of remorse. As summer faded, Oakwood's Freedom Fest grew into a regional event, drawing families from across Atlanta. The community center, once Olivia's throne, hosted workshops on fighting discrimination, led by Carla, the APS worker, and a guest speaker, a law professor funded by the Rosa Carter Scholarship. James watched kids of all backgrounds play together, their laughter drowning out the memory of Olivia's slurs. Ruth, now a beloved president, announced a new initiative, a neighborhood council where every resident had a vote, ensuring no one could monopolize power again. "We're not just a community," she said, raising a glass. "We're a family." James stood with Emily and Rosa, feeling the weight of their victory. Grace rolled up, her eyes bright despite her illness. "Your grandmother would have loved this," she said, gesturing to the crowd. "She always said, 'Bullies fall when good people stand.'" "You stood, James." He smiled, his heart full. Knowing Olivia's defeat wasn't just their win, it was a blueprint for anyone fighting injustice. As fall settled over Oakwood Heights, the neighborhood glowed with a newfound sense of unity, its streets alive with laughter and light where fear once ruled. James Carter walked through the community center, now a hub for weekly cultural events. From the Patel family's Diwali celebrations to the Kim's Korean barbecue nights, the Oakwood Truth website had become a national beacon, with over 10,000 daily hits from people seeking to dismantle corrupt HOAs. The Oakwood Freedom Alliance, once a band of rebels, was now a permanent council, ensuring every resident had a voice. But as Olivia Harper's sentencing day approached, James felt a nagging unease. She'd proven she could strike from behind bars. Her failed smear campaign was proof. Could she still have one last trick up her sleeve? The Alliance stayed sharp, their war room now a sleek office in the community center, lined with whiteboards and laptops tracking Olivia's case. Dr. Patel, ever the numbers wizard, uncovered a new lead. Olivia had stashed $100,000 in an offshore account, funneled through a fake charity she'd set up to beautify Oakwood. The account was linked to a string of anonymous donations to a shady political campaign in Atlanta, one pushing for weaker HOA regulations. She was planning her comeback even before the gala. "Dr. Patel said, showing James the bank records. "This woman doesn't quit." Lisa Chen, the lawyer, filed a motion to seize the account, adding money laundering to Olivia's charges. The DA, thrilled with the Alliance's relentless evidence, called it the most airtight case I've seen in 20 years. Olivia's final gambit came a week before her sentencing. A local tabloid ran a story claiming James had bribed witnesses to fabricate her crimes, sourced from an anonymous whistleblower in Oakwood. The story was flimsy, riddled with errors, but it stirred enough doubt to make James's phone buzz with worried clients. The Kims traced the article to a freelance writer paid through Olivia's cousin's shell company in Florida, the same one tied to her failed smear lawyer. "She's throwing Hail Mary passes from her cell," Henry said, slamming the tabloid on the table. The Alliance struck back fast. Ruth Thompson, with her knack for charming the press, invited reporters to a community Q&A. Standing beside James, Grace, and 40 residents, she debunked the story with a stack of evidence emails, bank records, and videos that left the tabloid scrambling to retract. The press conference turned into a celebration of Oakwood's resilience. Henry shared his story of being targeted for his veteran status. The Patels spoke of their fight against Olivia's gang symbol fines, and the Garcias recounted her ICE report against their daughter. The cameras rolled as Grace, frail but fierce, took the mic. "Olivia tried to break us because we didn't fit her vision," she said, her voice steady. "But we're still here, stronger than ever." The crowd erupted, and the story went viral again, pushing Oakwood justice to 7 million views. The tabloid's retraction ran the next day. with an apology buried under headlines praising James's leadership. Olivia's last-ditch effort had backfired, painting her as a desperate liar. On sentencing day, the courtroom was packed with Oakwood residents, news crews, and even national reporters drawn by the saga's viral fame. Olivia, in an orange jumpsuit, looked diminished, her once impeccable makeup replaced by a haggard scowl. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who'd seen the alliance's evidence, laid out her crimes: 47 counts of mail theft, wire fraud, racketeering, and civil rights violations. "Your actions tore at the fabric of a community," the judge said, her voice like steel. "You targeted families for their race, stole their privacy, and abused power for personal gain." Olivia's plea for leniency, claiming she was misguided but well-intentioned, drew groans from the gallery. The judge sentenced her to 7 years in federal prison, $500,000 in restitution, and a permanent ban from any leadership role. As she was led away, Olivia's eyes locked on James, filled with a venom that no longer held power. The aftermath was a reckoning. Olivia's offshore account was seized, its funds redirected to the Rosa Carter Scholarship, now supporting 10 students studying housing law. Her McMansion, sold at auction, became a community art studio where the Garcia's daughter taught painting classes. Harper Realty's bankruptcy left David Harper working as a used car salesman, a far cry from his real estate empire. He sent James a letter, thanking him for opening my eyes to who Olivia really was. James didn't reply. He was too busy building a future for Oakwood. The neighborhood's transformation was breathtaking. The community center hosted weekly workshops, from Carla's sessions on spotting bureaucratic abuse to Lisa's legal clinics for HOA victims. The veterans group, led by Henry and Grace, grew to 50 members, offering support for PTSD and housing issues. James's company thrived, landing a $5 million contract to build a community tech hub, with the Patels and Kims consulting on design. Emily, now home with baby Rosa, started a podcast, Oakwood Rising, sharing stories of community victories. It hit 100,000 downloads in its first month, with listeners from California to Maine. The ripple effects kept spreading. Oakwood's law inspired a federal bill, pushed by a congresswoman who'd followed the saga online. James testified in D.C., his words echoing in a packed chamber. "Power without accountability breeds tyrants. We stopped one, but there are more." The bill, mandating nationwide HOA transparency, gained bipartisan support, with 20 states already adopting similar measures. Letters from grateful families filled James's mailbox. One from a Native American couple in Arizona who'd used the Alliance's playbook to oust their own HOA tyrant. "You gave us our home back," they wrote. As winter approached, Oakwood's second Freedom Fest drew thousands. A festival of music, food, and defiance, the community center, once Olivia's stage, was now a symbol of unity, its walls painted with murals by the Garcia's daughter. James stood with Emily, Rosa in her arms, watching Grace tell stories to a circle of kids. Ruth, still president, announced a new scholarship fund for local youth, funded by Olivia's restitution. "This is our Oakwood," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd, "built by us, for us." James raised a glass, his heart full, knowing they'd done more than defeat Olivia. They'd built a legacy of justice that would outlast them all. Winter's chill couldn't dim the warmth of Oakwood Heights, where the streets buzzed with a community that had reclaimed its soul. James Carter stood at the community center, now a vibrant hub adorned with murals from the Garcia family's art classes. The Oakwood Truth website had grown into a national resource, with 50,000 monthly visitors downloading templates to challenge corrupt HOAs. The Oakwood Freedom Alliance, once a scrappy band of neighbors, was now a formal council, meeting weekly to ensure transparency and fairness. James felt pride watching kids play freely where Olivia Harper's Cadillac once loomed. But a lingering question gnawed at him. Could the lessons of their fight protect others from tyrants like her? The fallout from Olivia's downfall kept unfolding. Her 7-year sentence was just the start. Federal investigators, spurred by the Alliance's evidence, uncovered a network of corrupt HOA presidents across 3 states, all linked to Olivia through her shady real estate contacts. A sting operation, dubbed Operation Clean Sweep, led to 12 arrests, with Olivia's name topping the list as the ringleader. Her offshore account, once a secret stash, funded restitution for victims, including $100,000 to the Rosa Carter Scholarship. The scholarship now supported 15 students, including a young woman from Oakwood, Maria Garcia, who was studying housing law to stop the next Olivia. Her application essay, shared at a community meeting, brought tears to James's eyes. Oakwood taught me justice isn't given, it's fought for. The Alliance's work didn't stop at home. Dr. Patel and the Kims launched a national hotline, HOA Watch, offering free advice to residents battling abusive boards. Calls flooded in from Texas to Vermont, with stories of fines for wrong paint colors or banned cultural decorations. The hotline, staffed by volunteers like Henry and the Patels, helped 200 families file lawsuits, recovering $1.2 million in predatory fines. Lisa Chen, the lawyer, partnered with a D.C. firm to push the federal Oakwood's law bill. Now on the cusp of a Senate vote, James joined her in Washington, testifying before Congress. "We didn't just fight one woman," he said, his voice steady. "We fought a system that lets power corrupt." Oakwood proved change is possible. The room erupted in applause, with senators from both parties nodding, a rare moment of unity. Back home, Oakwood thrived. The community center hosted monthly Freedom Fests, drawing thousands from across Atlanta. The Patels' Diwali celebration lit up the night with lanterns and laughter, while the Kims' Korean cultural night featured a kimchi-making workshop that sold out in hours. Henry's veterans group grew to 75 members, with Grace as its heart, sharing stories of her civil rights battles to inspire resilience. James's company landed a $10 million contract to build a tech campus, with a community center modeled after Oakwood's. Clients praised his vision, but James credited the Alliance. "They taught me strength isn't just building, it's standing up," he told a reporter. Emily's podcast, Oakwood Rising, hit 500,000 downloads, with episodes featuring Alliance members and HOA victims nationwide. One guest, a Navajo family from Arizona, shared how they used Oakwood's playbook to oust a president who'd fined them for unapproved tribal art. "You gave us hope," they said, their voices cracking. Emily, cradling baby Rosa, teared up recording the episode. "This isn't just our story," she told listeners. "It's everyone's." The podcast inspired a documentary deal, with a crew filming in Oakwood, capturing the murals, the festivals, and Grace's fierce spirit. "We fought for our home," Grace told the cameras, "and won a family." But a new challenge emerged. A month before the federal bill's vote, a lobbying group tied to real estate tycoons launched a smear campaign against Oakwood's law, claiming it hurt property values. The group, funded by a former associate of Olivia's, spread ads with doctored images of Oakwood as a slum post-reform. James recognized the playbook. It was Olivia's, recycled by her old allies. The Alliance fought back with a viral counter-campaign, Truth Over Lies, flooding social media with videos of Oakwood's vibrant festivals and testimonials from residents. Ruth Thompson, still sharp at 80, went on national TV, charming anchors with her wit. "They call us a slum," she said, holding up a photo of the community center. "This is what freedom looks like." The hashtag Truth Over Lies trended at 10 million views, drowning out the lobbyists. The Alliance's final blow came from an unexpected source. Maria Garcia, the scholarship student, uncovered a paper trail linking the lobbying group to Olivia's cousin in Florida, who'd been funneling money to block HOA reforms. Maria's research, shared with the DA, led to a federal investigation that froze the group's accounts. "This is for my parents," Maria told James, handing over the evidence. "Olivia tried to deport me. Now I'm deporting her lies." The lobbyists backed off, and Oakwood's law gained momentum, with 30 states now considering their own versions. As spring returned, Oakwood's third Freedom Fest was its biggest yet, drawing 5,000 people. The community center overflowed with food, music, and stories of triumph. Grace, weaker now but radiant, spoke to the crowd, Rosa on her lap. "We didn't just beat a bully," she said. "We built a home where everyone belongs." James, standing with Emily, felt the weight of their journey. Olivia's shadow was gone, replaced by a community that stood taller than ever. The fight had cost them sleepless nights and tears, but it had given them something priceless, a legacy of justice that would echo for generations. A year after Olivia Harper's fall, Oakwood Heights stood as a testament to resilience, its streets alive with the colors of community. James Carter walked through the neighborhood, past murals painted by the Garcia family and gardens blooming where fines once suffocated joy. The Oakwood Truth website had grown into a global resource, with 100,000 monthly visitors and a toolkit translated into 5 languages, empowering people from London to Sydney to fight corrupt HOAs. The Oakwood Freedom Alliance, now a non-profit, trained activists nationwide, turning their victory into a movement. James felt a quiet pride, but the real reward was watching his daughter, Rosa, toddle through the community center, surrounded by neighbors who'd become family. Olivia's shadow was gone, but the fight for justice was far from over. The legal hammer on Olivia was final. Her 7-year sentence held firm, with no parole after her failed smear campaigns from prison. Federal prosecutors, using the Alliance's evidence, dismantled her network of corrupt HOA presidents, leading to 20 convictions across 5 states. Olivia's name became synonymous with abuse of power, her story a cautionary tale in law schools. Her $500,000 restitution funded the Rosa Carter Scholarship, now supporting 25 students, including Maria Garcia, who spoke at a national housing conference alongside James. "Oakwood showed me justice is a fight worth winning," Maria told the crowd, her voice steady. "I'm here to make sure no one else loses their home to a tyrant." The applause was deafening, a reminder of how far their story had traveled. The federal Oakwood's law passed with bipartisan support, mandating transparency for HOAs nationwide. James and Lisa Chen stood in the White House Rose Garden as the president signed it, their faces beaming on national TV. "This law is for every family who's faced a bully with a rule book," James said, dedicating it to Grace, who watched from home with baby Rosa. 35 states adopted similar laws, and the HOA Watch Hotline, run by Dr. Patel and the Kims, had helped 500 families recover $3 million in predatory fines. Letters poured in daily, one from a black family in Michigan who'd used the Alliance's playbook to save their home from foreclosure. "You gave us our future back," they wrote, enclosing a photo of their kids playing in a yard once targeted by fines. Oakwood itself was unrecognizable. The community center, once Olivia's throne, hosted daily events, coding classes by the Kims, art workshops by the Garcias, and Grace's veteran support group, now a regional hub with 100 members. Henry, the black veteran, led a mentorship program for young activists, his Purple Heart a badge of his fight. The Patels turned their Diwali festival into an annual citywide event, drawing 10,000 attendees. Ruth Thompson, still HOA president at 81, announced a new community fund, seeded with Olivia's seized assets, to repair homes damaged by her predatory fines. "This is our Oakwood," Ruth said at the fourth Freedom Fest, her voice carrying over a crowd of 7,000. "Built on truth, not tyranny." Emily's podcast, Oakwood Rising, hit 1 million downloads with a Netflix documentary in production. The crew followed James's family, capturing Grace's stories of 1960s protests and Rosa's first steps in the community center. "This isn't just about us," Emily told viewers. "It's about what happens when good people refuse to bow." James's tech company thrived, landing a $20 million contract to build a network of community hubs across Atlanta, each modeled on Oakwood's inclusive vision. He hired Maria Garcia as a legal consultant, her research skills sharpening his firm's community outreach. Even David Harper, humbled by his ex-wife's crimes, became a client, hiring James to rebuild a community center in a nearby town. "I was blind to her evil," David admitted. "You opened my eyes." A final twist came unexpectedly. At the Freedom Fest, a young man approached James, introducing himself as Olivia's estranged son, Ethan. "She cut me off for marrying a Latina," he said, his voice heavy. "Your fight freed me too." Ethan had joined a housing advocacy group, using his mother's story as a warning. He handed James a letter Olivia had sent from prison, begging for forgiveness. "I was wrong," she wrote, her handwriting shaky. "I see that now." James read it, then set it aside. Forgiveness was for later, justice was now. Ethan's wife, a lawyer, joined the Rosa Carter Scholarship Board, ensuring Olivia's restitution kept funding change. As summer returned, Oakwood's fifth Freedom Fest was a global event, live-streamed to millions. The community center overflowed with music, food, and stories of triumph. Grace, now in remission, spoke to the crowd, Rosa on her hip. "We didn't just defeat a bully," she said. "We built a home where everyone belongs." James, standing with Emily, felt the weight of their journey lift. His company, his family, his community, they were stronger than ever. The festival ended with a toast, led by Ruth to Oakwood, to justice, to never backing down. The cheers shook the night, a promise that their fight would echo forever. Thank you for following this story. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and share your own story of standing up to a bully. If you want more tales of justice and resilience, hit that subscribe button. We're back tomorrow with another story you won't want to miss.